All right, on the phone right now we have one of the great rock vocalists of all time. You may know him best, I guess, from TNT, but he's got a bunch of other musical projects, and it's Tony Harnell, who's going to be performing at Rascals here in Worcester tomorrow night. Tony, thank you so much for taking the time this morning.
Oh, my pleasure, Mike. Thanks for having me. And thanks for the nice introduction.
Well, I'm telling you, man, your voice, you're one of the great, really one of the great rock singers of all time. I was looking at your Twitter feed, and you like Chris Jericho posted something. I guess he was answering someone else about the top. It looks like a list of the best singers. And so you put your list of top singers up there too. And I just want to say thanks for including two people who I think don't get enough credit, because you have Freddie Mercury up there and Steve Perry and Robert Plant and really great singers, but Ronnie James Dio is one who I think he doesn't get enough credit for being an amazing rock singer with that strong voice, you know? Yeah.
Well, spending all the time that I have in Europe during my career, I can tell you that the list would, most lists over there would have him at the top. The different world over there, but no, he has to be. When you're talking about whether it be metal, rock, or really any rock genre, I feel like he kind of has to be in there.
Yeah, as well as a great performer. And and then the other name who I think barely gets any credit for being a great singer, at least I don't hear a lot of it anyway, is Klausmina from the Scorpions. Really,
one of my favorites.
Yeah, amazing. And I just don't think he gets enough credit for being a great singer.
No, I don't either. I think that's a good one. And I think probably, I don't know really why. I think some people don't really, maybe can't get past the accent or something, but I've been a fan since the 70s, and a lot of I think if people want to really hear the beauty of his voice, listen to some of those ballads that they did in the late 70s and early 80s. There's Wind of Change, Wind of Change, which was, a later song when the wall came down, but gorgeous voice and great technique.
Now, you said you spent a lot of time in Europe because TNT is a band from Norway, so you spent a lot of. You say things are different in Europe as far as how people, I guess, perceive or listen to music. What do you think is the biggest difference between crowds, like say in Europe, and crowds here in the United States?
Well, the one thing is when we kind of have been going through these trends. So, like when the grunge era hit, it was popular over there for sure. But the rock thing that was established in the 70s and 80s never really died the same way that it did here. So they really aren't. I feel like the European rock fans are not as fickle as American rock fans, and they sort of stick with, what they like, and they're very stubborn that way. So, but the fans are great everywhere. I've had great audiences in pretty much every country, every city. So it just depends, but they love their rock and roll. One interesting difference that I always find kind of funny is like this sort of thing where they love Deep Purple, whereas we're more into Led Zeppelin. That's always the comparison they make. You guys like Zeppelin, we like Purple.
Yeah. I find that it seems to me, and this is just my personal observation, that in Europe they enjoy something that's a little more dramatic or a little more operatic. It just seems like the bands like TNT or Iron Maiden, people that have kind of just a wider range seem to be more popular.
I would agree. They appreciate classical overtones in the music. Different. Their ears are geared toward more classical chord progressions, or things that are rooted in that anyway. So I would agree with you that more of the drama stuff, or just and they do appreciate really good musicianship. So you might see, but in saying that, bands like Kiss and Motley Crue, and they are very big over there too.
Right.
So.
Of course. Right. Well, you're coming here to Worcester, Massachusetts, over at Rascals, and so you're involved in so many projects. We mentioned TNT, that you were probably involved, I would say, the longest of all the projects. And then you have a project called Starbreaker, and then there's Westworld, and then you have your solo releases and the acoustic stuff there. So what can we expect at the show at Rascals tomorrow night?
Well, this will be an acoustic show, which I've been doing. I started getting really into playing acoustic in probably around 2007 or 8 when I was living in New York City. And I had a lot of friends that were really talented singer-songwriters, and they would play these intimate little venues. And I just got really into it. I was like, this is a great thing for me to do, to develop my singing and my performing, because I found the whole thing to be kind of scary. It's like, I don't have a big stage. I don't have the lights and the full rock band to kind of stand, in front of. There's really nothing but a guitar, or maybe a couple of things, maybe guitar and violin, or I've done that setup as well. And it's been amazing. I still find it a little nerve-wracking till I get going, but I love it though. And so the show is kind of a mixture of things. It's a little TNT. It's some of my solo stuff. It's some great covers that I sort of have become known to do, and probably one in particular that will go over well up in the near Boston area.
Little hint on that, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, a little hint. I mean, what are we talking? Are we talking Aerosmith?
We might be talking about a little more than a feeling or something.
Oh, dude! There's another vocalist who I think for some reason doesn't get a lot of credit. That's Brad Delp.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, it was his. I think he was an alien, in that he didn't really pass away. He just had to go home to his home planet because his voice was so unearthly. But that's exciting. That was a question I was going to ask you. Like, which is tougher, you up there with a guitar, or just acoustic you and an acoustic guitar, or having to perform with, a whole ensemble? But you answer that. Yeah, I guess you're just more bare. You're bearing yourself a lot more. Is it easier?
But it's a beautiful.
I'm sorry. No, I was just thinking, when it comes to writing stuff, is it easier or harder for you? Because I know you, with TNT, you had a couple of guys that you wrote a lot of stuff with. I guess it would depend by what project it is, right?
Yeah, I like to co-write, and I do write on my own, but I'm not a great guitar player, so I will be bringing my favorite guitar player that I play with most of my acoustic shows from New York. But writing happens in many different ways. And what I was going to say before about the acoustic shows is it's actually really beautiful. I see a lot of fans will say kind of almost like, but when are you playing electric? And I'm like, well, I'm doing that too, but don't discount the acoustic show. It is a different experience, but I have found, I remember going to see Chris Cornell when he was doing his Storyteller tour, and just completely, that was one of the things that sort of pushed me even further to expand my acoustic shows, and it gave me the idea that you don't have to hold back your singing just because you're playing acoustic. So if people think that I'm going to be, it's going to be a kumbaya type night, that's definitely not what what it is.
Right, you'll be belting it out as usual.
Yeah.
This tour is kind of,
but it's a little of everything though. It's not me just playing through my songs with acoustic chords of the same riffs and so forth. I mean, a lot of my stuff has been reworked for the acoustic format. So there's there's different colors that you'll hear in my voice. There's more subtlety. There's more quiet stuff, but that just makes the powerful stuff more dynamic.
Right. And then you've been playing music. Are we getting close to? Are we getting close to like 40 years here?
Well, professionally, yeah. And but altogether, I was giving little mini concerts for my school teachers when I was probably 5 or 6, when I was in kindergarten. My grandmother would have friends over, and I'd be singing along to Glenn Campbell records.
Was that your primary influence? Was it your grandmother or a teacher? So a lot of people say, well, I learned to sing in the church, or I learned to sing in an organization.
Yeah.
Like, who was the one that said, hey, you have a voice, you should nurture this?
Well, it's funny. People noticed when I was quite young that my ear was good, and I guess they thought I could, hold a tune. My mom was an opera singer, so and she was quite young when she had me. So she's going and doing. She was a serious opera singer. She actually had a career and was pursuing it seriously, and was having her, going to her vocal coach when she was pregnant with me. So she was 19 years old when she had me.
Wow.
I grew up, I was an opera brat. I was backstage all the time and hanging out in that situation and hearing really amazing music. But she, at home, she was, playing the latest records by the Beatles and folk music and Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Young, and whatever was popular during the time when I was growing up. So I was exposed to everything and learned to appreciate and just absolutely love music from a very young age. And so I felt I was a little unusual compared to my friends. So yeah, I was in California, grew up out there, and I was surfing and skateboarding and doing all the California kid stuff, but music was like always a very big deal for me. But when I was about 14, a friend of mine gave me my first hard or heavy metal albums. He gave me a Judas Priest album, Stained Class, and Rainbow Rising. That changed everything.
So those were the ones. It was Stained Class and Rainbow Rising. That was the catalyst for you to say, I want to do this for real. Right.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it didn't happen right away, but it shook my world up, and I had an 8-track player in my car, my first car when I was 16, and those two albums, and also Rush 2112 and Hemisphere. So those 4 were probably on heavy rotation in my car, and I was learning from them, and it was the catalyst for sure. And then all the Judas Priest records that followed in the late 70s and early 80s, and and everything else, Journey and Foreigner and everything else that was going on at the time. But it was really that metal kick that pushed me over, because I think in my head I thought, well, that the way that Rob Halford is singing, it really does kind of remind me of, there's an operatic connection there.
Yeah.
And it's extreme singing, and I was into extreme sports with surfing and skateboarding. I think as a kid I had this attitude that it's not worth doing unless it's incredible. And I thought those guys were incredible, so I thought, if I could do that, it's worth doing. So I just started kind of singing in my car and trying to emulate what they were doing, until one day when I was about 16 or 17, I just kind of opened up this top register and kind of freaked out about it and started singing heavily every day. And then I didn't let anyone hear me. Eventually somebody heard me by accident, and then the whole thing took off from there.
So what was that first show that you did, like, when you were on stage and this is it? This is the first time I'm doing it. I mean, did it go over big, or was it, sometimes people say, well, my first shows were disasters, and, what was that like?
It was kind of an audition. I had done a bunch of rehearsing, and then the first professional show was a band that I had been recruited into down in the Philadelphia, South Jersey area, and we were auditioning for the agent that the band wanted to book the band locally. And oddly, and I was 17, I wasn't even old enough to be in the club, and oddly, in the front row, there was the agent, and then this guy that looked like the coolest rock star I'd ever seen, and it was kind of intimidating. I was like, who's this guy? Well, the guy next to the agent turned out to be Tom Kiefer.
Oh, wow.
And Tom and I became friends, and over the years, and we're kind of in the same circles, and we played the same shows with his early bands. He had a band called Diamonds at the time, and then he had another band after that called Saints in Hell. So there was and the guys from Britney Fox were kind of around that era, and a bunch of those dudes. So, but I don't think I was very good. I think I probably sang okay, but I was like probably stiff and still.
Right, right. First time. Yeah. I mean, but you kept with it. That's the important thing. You didn't give up on your dream.
No.
Yeah. And
no, I was in. There was no deterring me. Everybody tried, but I had my mindset.
So you've been doing this for decades, and I talked to Jeff Tate recently from Queensryche, and I asked him this question. It's like, how do you maintain your voice for so long? And his answer to me, he exercise. It's like a muscle. He exercises it and he takes care of it. But he said, don't succumb to the rock and roll lifestyle. That's the best thing for your voice. And what do you have to say for that?
Well, he's right, and I've had my struggles with alcohol, and I'm 4 years alcohol free now, and that makes a difference.
Yeah.
And most of my early career, I was sort of on the road, clean as a whistle. Get me off the road and there's trouble. But he's right. And I had a great vocal coach that I started working with when I was 18, and I've never worked with anybody else, and he's the best.
Wow.
I still say he's the best. Don Lawrence in New York, who works with Lady Gaga and Bono and a ton of people, Christina Aguilera.
Jeez.
He's right, and I do. I'm also a vocal coach. I have a vocal course, an online vocal course that is pretty amazing, and work with singers, and been working with singers as another thing that I do for about 30 years. So, it takes. You have to work. You have to work it, and so when you have shows, it's hard with these one-offs too, or having the fly-ins sometimes when they're not consistent. So when you get into the singing more and doing more shows all the time, it becomes easier and easier. But Jeff sounds great these days. So
he was at Rascals also, and it's amazing. He still has an amazing voice. Yeah. So what, you're doing this tour right now, part acoustic, and then I see some dates are electric, but are you doing any recording these days? Do you have any projects coming up?
I'm actually working on a new, I'm hoping to get a new record deal soon, and working with a company or a producer in Sweden. So we'll see what happens with that. I've been writing quite a lot lately, and so I've got a lot of songs. I'm just sort of trying to figure out, and they're all different styles, so just trying to figure out what I'm going to do with all of it.
Yeah.
But I haven't felt the sort of manic urge that I saw happening when COVID hit, when everybody was like, I got to put something out. I did put out one song with under the moniker Echobats with Joel Hoekstra, Matt Starr, and James Lomenzo, and Eric Levy, some pretty great musicians. And Joel and I wrote a really cool song called "Save Me from Loving You," which was on the radio a bit. We had a little fun with that in 2020 and made a video for it. But I didn't feel that. At first, I was like, I better do stuff, and then I was like, wait a minute, maybe this is just an opportunity to take a step back and live life, in some way.
Yeah, a lot of people discovered that. Like, hey, I was worried about work 12 hours a day, and now I can't even go into the office. And, oh, my gosh, I have children, and it's kind of nice watching TV or playing with my kids or making music and not, just kind of going at my own pace. So, yeah, it's nice. Yeah. Well, listen, Tony, I really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much. And looking forward to seeing you at Rascals in Worcester. That's happening tomorrow night. Go out there and see Tony Harnell. And as he mentioned earlier, you're going to be doing a mix of a lot of stuff from your decades of experience. There will be TNT stuff in there and all your projects. Yeah. Dare I ask anything about if there's any kind of Skid Row stuff you're going to do?
No.
Okay, there we go. That's her. I got the question out of the way there. All right, so don't expect any of that. All right. Well, Tony, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and looking forward to seeing you at Rascals.
Thank you.